Welcome to the Walker's Facade. I'm trying to make this YouTube channel and this series of video for the engineers and architects who have recently joined the facade industry, and maybe even for the students who are interested in joining or knowing more about facade. On this channel, I'll be breaking down simple concepts or concepts of facade in simple language and simple sketches for you to understand the terms and concepts easier, or to make it easier for you to understand. I hope that will also help you understand or read the drawings better and know the facade concepts in an easier way, in a simpler way. Let's dive right into it. So we'll start with a concept or with a thing that has always been there right in front of your eyes, but you might have not noticed. Spandrels, spandrel panel. So if you are familiar with the terms in facade, in a curtain wall, you will see spandrel. A curtain wall is basically divided into two parts. We call that glass part of the building as curtain walls mostly. That's not the norm, but yeah. So let me sketch a basic section of a building, yeah? Say this or these are floors, right? A section. Say this is the 10th floor, this is the 11th floor, and this is the 12th floor, right? And we'll draw a facade line, a curtain wall line, right? Say this is the curtain wall and that is the slab. So if we divide the curtain wall into different panels, say just above the floor, say this is the panel for 9th floor, this is the panel for 10th floor, and this is the panel for 11th floor. Let's focus on one panel. If we consider this one panel, this is usually divided into two. This being the vision part of it, or vision panel, and this being the spandrel. So the vision panel is the area which is see-through. So from the inside you will be able to see outside, and from the outside the light will pass inside. So this is basically a see-through panel. That's vision panel. But we are not talking about it in this video. We'll be focusing on this spandrel panel that we just saw. This could be the transom below, this could be the transom above, this could be the panel above, and this be the joint line. Yeah, so the part from here, the part from there to here is the spandrel part. When you consider this section, the floor section, there are a lot of things behind. This being the bracket that holds the panel. There could be fire stop, there could be some wiring, then a lot of things. Maybe there is flooring here, maybe there is false ceiling here. So what we do is, to prevent all this, we just turn this part into an opaque or not so transparent section of the curtain wall, so that you will not be able to see, or any onlooker of the building will not be able to see all these nasty things. So that's a spandrel. Now, a spandrel has two key purposes. One is to be aesthetic or look good, basically. So rather than showing all those internal parts, interior things, it is made to look better. It is made to cover that nasty things. It's architect's choice on how he wants to cover it. Now this, in case of this spandrel panel, say here, from here to here, the architect can choose to cover this part, this face of it, with anything. He can choose to cover it with metal, he can choose to cover it with stone or tile or HPL or any kind of custom finish, and that's entirely his choice. It could even be glass. So in this video, we'll talk more about the glass cladding or glazed spandrel panel. Let's say this part of the curtain wall right here is glass, and below this part is the vision glass, right? And this part is the spandrel. So now it's entirely up to, no, not entirely up to the architect, it's up to the facade engineer or the engineering team to check on the feasibility of using glass. See, when you are having a stone cladding or any kind of opaque cladding, you can do certain things, or you can make it different from the curtain wall to prevent sound transmission, heat transmission, weather proofing, right? But when it's glass, weatherproofing is fine, but sound transmission and heat transmission, these two are a bit of concern. Say there are curtain walls or there are projects where I have worked where the vision glass is double glazed IGU. This IGU is capable of preventing or reducing heat transfer. So which affects or which helps in energy consumption and thermal conductivity and soundproofing the interior. But what happens is in cities, in countries like India, in suburban cities in India, the client doesn't want to spend too much money, and double glazed panels are expensive. What he does is double glazed panels are used only in the vision part. Vision part is usually, if you see again on this part, not this part, this part, this area is usually habitable. So there are people walking around. So this part, the vision part of the glass, vision part of the panel, need to be safer. And IGU is usually considered safer or is safer than using just a single pane of glass. So vision part is used as double glazed glass, and spandrel part is sometimes used as single glass. So when it's single glass or even when it's double glass, sometimes architect just chooses to paint the backside of the glass in some kind of a coating. Sometimes nowadays it's ceramic frit. Ceramic fritting is a process which we'll explain in some other video, but just understand that it's a coating, it's a kind of paint, and he makes the glass opaque with the paint. And then there is, when it's opaque, he has all the area or all the freedom to do whatever he wants on the backside. So he can cover it with thermal insulation or a lot of things to prevent the heat transfer or to reduce the heat transfer and reduce the sound transmission. Here in this video, we will discuss a little further on the facade design when the glass on spandrel and the glass on vision are exactly the same, or it's the same DGU glass. What this does is, this helps in keeping the aesthetic from the outside very similar. Since the glass looks same, it is easier to make it similar. Let me go back. When the architect decides to make it single glass with coating on the inside, that leaves the spandrel part opaque. So even in the daytime, when you look from the outside, you will see that spandrel being very obvious, which area is spandrel and which area is vision. So you will see the banding, the horizontal banding or the vertical banding wherever the spandrel comes. So vertical banding or vertical spandrel will come in the column areas, or say core wall areas where there is lift shaft areas. So whatever the architect needs to hide in those areas, he will give spandrel panels. So having a coating on the back of the glass makes that glass very opaque, which is sometimes or most of the times not a desirable look, which you will agree if you look on any modern glass buildings in the cities. You will not notice, or you will not see a difference between glass panels on each floor. That is because there has been much effort put into it to make them look similar. So in such a case, what the architect does is he provides something called a shadow box. A shadow box is something that closes the backside of the spandrel panel. So when you see from the outside, the glass is still see-through, and here in the vision part of it, you will be able to see inside. Of course, depends on the reflection and lights inside, but still. Now, there are some interesting design considerations that are taken here. First, let me just explain what are the three parts of a spandrel panel. This kind of spandrel panel. First, glass. So, glass, when it's double glazed or more panel of glass are used, this can be first thing it will help is to make it aesthetically look similar to the vision panel. Second thing, if it's an insulated glass, that will help in thermal conductivity. It will help in reflecting the sunlight. It will help reduce UV light transmission. Second part is the air gap. There is an air gap inside. This air gap also allows for insulation, thermal insulation, and it also allows for to reduce sound transmission. There is nothing solid in this part. Leaving a gap allows for reduction in sound transmission. Then there is this part, the metal panel. That's the shadow box. Now, the shadow box also has some peculiar features. Now, let us consider this. Say the shadow box is a normal GI sheet, a shiny metal sheet. So when an onlooker looks from the outside to the vision panel and to the glass, to the spandrel panel, vision panel will be a little bit reflective, but it will still pass the light from inside to outside. The spandrel panel, because of the metal sheet inside, will reflect the sunlight and be very bright, which is again is making the spandrel very obvious, right? Which is not a desired look. So what the architect decides, or what the architect does, is try to cover this part of the shadow box in some kind of paint, some color. So now let us imagine he covers it in white color. The problem with white is, just as it was with the shiny metal, the white reflects too much light and makes the spandrel brighter. Let's say he uses black. What happens then is the black absorbs too much light and makes the spandrel look darker than the vision panel. So the ideal is to use some lighter shade of any color that depends on the color of the glass. Say the blue that I have used, say that's the color of the glass. Then the vision panel will look bluer, and if you use gray color inside, if he wants it to be very similar to the spandrel and vision, very similar to the vision panel, ideally what an architect does is he chooses on some shade of gray colors, and he asks the contractor to make a few mock-ups with varying shades of gray. So in this mock-up, the glass on the vision and the spandrel will be same. The whole setup will be made just like a curtain wall, maybe smaller, just to understand the color differences. In these mock-ups, the architect visualizes it or looks at it in different angle, different sunlight, maybe in shade, however he wants to look at it. That makes it easier for him to choose or to know which color makes the spandrel look similar to vision glass and, more or less undifferentiable or indifferentiable from the vision glass. Since the spandrel is already covered, since it is covering a portion, this concrete, the slab, since it is a large opaque portion, of course it is covering the bracketing inside, all this nasty stuff inside, the wiring, the plumbing and all those things. But since it is doing that, the engineers can also use this space to hide more things. So sometimes there is insulation, thermal insulation, which is rock wool or glass wool, some kind of mineral wool, that is added to this part of the spandrel glass. Then another panel is added on top of it to cover this one, and this surface of this panel is then coated to match, and the same process that we just discussed is followed. In that case, the panel behind, this green one, that is left without coating. That is generally a metal panel. Then the thermal insulation, then the coating, then the air gap, and then the glass. That's how a spandrel is. As we were talking about painting the glass from the backside, that painting the glass leaves it very opaque and obvious, right? But when you use a shadow box, it gives a certain depth to the spandrel panel. So when you look from the outside, it, rather than looking like a flat board closing that portion of the panel, it looks like a regular glass but with some kind of depth inside, and that depth is created by this shadow box. Even shadow box can have some kind of taper shape. You will see in some of the modern architectural designs where the shadow box behind is made into different shape, varying tapered shape or curved shape, just to give that 3D kind of look. So architect has all the freedom to do all that. So spandrel is not just aesthetic, it helps in reduction of heat transfer. It can help in providing space for fire stop. It can help in providing space for flashing to hold the flooring. It can help provide space for wiring, plumbing, everything, right? Now, there are certain challenges in designing of a shadow box or a spandrel panel as well, especially this kind of a spandrel panel. Now, as we saw, there is an air gap between the shadow box and the glass, right? This air gap obviously has air inside, but that air is trapped inside. So the glass is sealed in from all sides, and the shadow box is also sealed from all sides, all four sides. So that leaves the air inside trapped within the system. And what happens with the trapped air? The sunlight is still passing through, right? When the sunlight is passing through, the sunlight will heat up the metal panel, the sunlight will heat up the air. So because of the temperature variation, there will be pressure variation in the air that is trapped inside, which in turn will put pressure onto the glass. So the glass will be stressed. Glass can get stressed unnecessarily because of this air trapped inside. So that requires some kind of pressure equalization. So the engineers provide some holes on the top and holes at the bottom for air to pass through. But then when air passes through, there is another problem of having moisture get into it. Then they have to find a way to prevent condensation of that moisture inside. So there are lots of factors that goes into designing a spandrel panel, right? So at first glance, a spandrel may be just to hide the nasty stuff behind, but when you go in depth, there are lots of factors that affects the design of spandrel panels, and that also helps in creating a better energy efficient and acoustically better performing facade. So yeah, that's all of it. I hope this helped, and I hope you will be able to identify spandrel better in any curtain wall that you look through from today onwards. Next time you look at a glass high-rise building, try spotting a spandrel panel. Now that we have finished this one topic, one video, the first video, I would want you to let me know if you have any facade related topic that is confusing you or that you want to know more. Put it in the comments, and maybe the next video will be based on that. Will be a response to your comments. That will help me and that will help you as well. So hit subscribe, and I will see you soon. Keep learning, keep building.